Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Good afternoon. This is Gath Marchent, your host for News and Views with the Rabbi. Today we will be discussing the upcoming primary for New York City for all the positions: mayor, controller, public advocate, borough presidents, and city council. And so let's start out first with early voting. Early voting for this election starts this Saturday, June 14th, and it goes through the 22nd, the next Sunday, a whole 9 days for early voting. And then the election day is the 24th. However, early voting, you can go, I want everybody to go Google New York City Board of Elections. When you Google New York City Board of Elections, you will click onto your poll site, because your early voting poll site will be different from your election day polling site, right? There are fewer early voting polling sites, so you have to check to see where your early voting site is. And it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday until Sunday. 9 days of early voting. So people could go out to vote early to vote, right? And so it's important to know your polling site. Secondly, this is new to some of the voters: ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting. It's not easily explained, but I'm gonna try my best to do it so that you can understand the process. Everybody has 5 votes where you rank the candidates, and the ballot will be, you'll see 5 different spots on the ballot, little circles where you put in there, and it will say number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So what you do is you rank the voters. You rank one voter number 1, you rank another voter number 2, you rank another one number 3, and number 4, and so on. And you cannot shade in. You can't vote for one candidate more than once. It will nullify your ballot like that. So you can't shade in the same person twice. And by the way, no one is going to win on the first ballot. We will not know the results on election night who won the mayoral primary, because of the simple fact of the ranked choice voting, because it's required that the winner of the primary gets 50% plus 1 vote. They get 50%, and they gotta get 1 more vote, and when the person gets that, they will become the winner of the primary. However, when you look at the polls today, you will see that the top person in the polls is only have 30 or 31%, 32% of the votes, which means they're at least 18% of the votes short of winning the primary. So what happens in this case? What happens is that there are 11 candidates for mayor. 11. So what happens is that after the first ballot, the bottom tier of the candidates gets eliminated, and their votes are then tallied to the next candidate who received their number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 votes, right? And that process will continue to probably the third round, and the other tier of voters candidates get eliminated, and their votes go to the rank to those other candidates on top. And it will go on until most of the candidates are eliminated, right, to the top two eventually, close on the fifth ballot or the fourth ballot, you get eliminated to the top two, and then those votes from the other people are counted up until one of the candidates receive 50 plus one. So it's probably going to take a whole week before we find out after the election who is going to be the winner of the mayor's race, because it's going to be, with 11 candidates, it's going to be very difficult for the board to calculate these ballots easily. So, it's a process that we have to know of how to rank your candidates, right? And your vote is going to be counted no matter who you voted for, right? Because it's going to roll over after your candidate who you voted number one is eliminated. But if your candidate you voted number one is going to be in the race until the end, and therefore they're going to get their votes of those that are eliminated. So I hope that kind of explains that process, so that you can understand how this vote is conducted. And for the same thing applies for the city council races. Some city council races have 5 candidates, 4 candidates. It would be easier, right? Some only have 2. So you wouldn't have a problem with the ranked choice voting because somebody is going to get a majority, right? So we have to look also at the other races, and the borough president race. For example, the borough president race in the Bronx only has 2 candidates. So therefore, somebody is going to win on the first ballot, and other races have the same thing. So we have to understand that and use our votes wisely so that we can get the outcome that we want in this election. Don't think that it's not like the regular election where, like in the general election, there's going to be no ranked choice voting, by the way, in November. So you just have a straight vote and you only vote for 1 candidate. In this case, you vote for 5. But that's your choice. You don't have to vote for 5. You can only vote for 1 if you want, and that's it. That means that there'll be your ballot won't count after the first ballot is conducted, right? If you just choose to vote just for 1 candidate, the candidate of your choice, and you say, I'm not voting for anybody else, that's your choice. And some people will choose to do that, you know what I mean? But some people will use the 5 votes to make sure at the end that their vote get counted to the winner. That's very important to understand that. And early voting is important. A lot of people don't understand that early voting don't come out, but early voting is very, very important. It counts, your ballot count the same way, and they will be resulted on after the election night. On the 24th, everything will be already been calculated. But early voting is important because sometimes we forget and we don't have a chance to vote on that day. But they give you 9 days for you to come in. 9 days, ladies and gentlemen, for you to come in and vote on that day. So I hope that someone explains that process. And let's take a look at the candidates and see how you're going to be carefully mark your ballot, because in the end, you want your vote to be counted to the official winner of the election. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but you know what I mean? You have your choice. The choice is yours. You make that choice and you can make it wisely. You know what I mean? This is basically a new process, the second time that we have had this ranked choice voting for mayor. And it's a process. The last election, it took 5 ballots from Mayor Adams to win, because nobody in the first ballot, he only had 30-something% of the votes, and nobody else had those votes. So he had to go to...
Hello viewers, you are watching Millennium News 24. America and global villages seen to America independence built by immigrants, manufacturers, roads, highways, educations, healthcare, IT, scientists, space, business development to all thousands of multimedia and all major social media platforms and news network in America. Millennium News 24, one of truthfully news networks in America and global news organizations. Please watch, follow and subscribe. We are in iOS and Android devices, Roku, Amazon, Apple devices, all smart TV, globally Horizon satellite, social media Millennium News 24, Millennium TV 24. Website www.millenniumnews24.com and www.millenniumtv24.com. Thank you. Hello viewers, you are watching Millennium News 24. America and global villages seen to America independence built by immigrants, manufacturers, roads, highways, educations, healthcare, IT, scientists, space, business development to all thousands of multimedia and all major social media platforms and news network in America. Millennium News 24, one of truthfully news networks in America and global news organizations. Please watch, follow and subscribe. We are in iOS and Android devices, Roku, Amazon, Apple devices, all smart TV, globally Horizon satellite, social media Millennium News 24, Millennium TV 24. Website www.millenniumnews24.com and www.millenniumtv24.com. Thank you.
Because there's a million people that don't have voting rights, that are not registered in the party. So why should they be excluded?
Okay, so we're back.
Yes, we're back. And we have Minister Naquan here.
Yes, Minister Hallback. How you guys doing out there in TV land? Yeah. So I'm glad to be here with Brother Golf. He's a good brother right here, Rabbi. And we've done a couple of things together. So it's a pleasure to be here, to support this show. So what I've heard is that the topic is about voting and getting people out to vote, the primaries, who's being elected, and maybe some other opinions. So I just want to ask a couple of questions before we.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when it comes down to ranked choice voting, how do you think that's fair for Eric Adams, and how do you think that it's going to work for all of the candidates?
Well, unfortunately, the mayor is not on the ballot for this primary, so the ranked choice voting doesn't affect him, right? But the process of ranked choice voting, to me, is a much fairer process, right? Because more people have an opportunity to have a say who becomes the mayor instead of the old system, right? Because the old system, you had 11. The way the old system worked, it would have cost the taxpayers much more money because on the old system, the winner had to get 40% of the votes, right? The top winner, and then then they would have to have a runoff election, another election, which costs millions of dollars to the taxpayers.
And this is with the regular way of voting.
The regular way, if it was done that way. Prior to now.
Rather than now, it will be what?
It will be now where we just have one election, all right, with people getting a choice of 5 votes, and then you count to the end, and by the end of the 5th ballot, somebody's going to have 50 plus 1, so we're going to have a winner with just the cost of the taxpayers of being less, right, instead of having another election with a runoff between the top 2 voters.
So, but what I mean is, being that Eric, he's not on the ballot, but he's running as an independent.
Yeah.
And now that this new system is in play, how does it play or how would that work in his benefit, or would it work in his benefit, or wouldn't? Because you got to think about the fact that now you have a whole new system that's in play that undermines what he's doing. Number one. Right. Number two is it honestly takes away, because now everybody's thinking more so about one way or this new way of voting, and it's kind of like he already has like a reputation where people are not going to really, vote for him. So how does this affect him in his outcome?
Well, it really doesn't affect him, because for the general election, which he's running as an independent, he'll be in the ballot in November, and in the November election, there's no ranked choice voting.
Oh, okay.
Right. So
interesting. Very interesting.
Right.
Okay.
So there's no ranked choice voting. So somebody's going to get a majority vote on the first ballot in the election. So that's going to be the person who's the winner. So you don't have the choice. You don't do no ranked choice.
Nice.
Right.
Nice,
so it wouldn't affect him at all.
So you think that he still has a chance?
Yeah. And like I said before, there is 1 million voters in New York City that doesn't have a vote in the primary. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen. 1 million people in New York City who choose not to enroll in a political party.
So how do you think
independent?
We start to engage into getting these other million to start?
Well, the mayor can say to those people that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party excluded you, and now here I am, to include you so you can have a vote.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? There are more independent voters that choose not to enroll in a party than Republicans in the city of New York. But yet, those voters don't have a choice. Right? And they're left out of the process. So the mayor can reach out to those people, and he has a shot to get those votes.
Nice. Okay. So what do you think would be the best way to reach out to these people, being that, they have the option to, but they just choose not to?
Well,
you think that it'd be best to like knock on doors or
yes,
do more like community engagement, things of that nature?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you gotta get the people involved in because it's like I said, it's a closed primary. That's the other thing we're going to discuss at the end, where the Charter Review Commission is going to put on the ballot in November a process where we have an open primary, so that those million people who don't have a choice can vote in the primaries, right? Okay. And you don't have to be, and the other part of it, you don't have to be a member of a specific party to have to be voting and to run in the primary. It's open. So even if I'm a person who choose not to enroll in any party, then I can run in this primary.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting.
That gets more inclusiveness for the people. So I'm urging the people here to call the Charter Review Commission to put it on the ballot in November, to have an open primary process.
Open primary process. That's very interesting.
Right. There's only one election in New York State that has open primary.
So let me ask you a question. So with that being said, it's only one election. So why do you think that they structured it like that? And how does that affect how people vote and the outcome?
I'm being honest with you. It was the parties control. You heard of Tammany Hall? Tammany Hall is the thing where where the party determines everything. And this is a Democratic city, technically, because they got the majority of the voters. And so therefore, whatever the Democratic Party determines, that's who become, there's only a couple of people that were Democrats that won. Was Mayor Lindsay was the Democrat, and he won the mayorship. Then you had Giuliani was a Republican, and he won. But those are rare things. And then Bloomberg was a Democrat, but he ran on the Republican line, getting the Wilson Pakula, and he won on the Republican line.
Okay.
See, those are the only exceptions. And the only reason why is because those people had money, so they could actually get their message out.
So that goes to speak towards why I guess they do it that way, is because it probably affects the people who has the ability to stand strong in those elections, or in that way of voting in the election.
Yeah.
So that probably speaks more to the answer that I was looking for. But
Yes.
let's figure out, right? Because if we have a system that's structured only for one type of candidate, then how do we change that? So this way now we can get more voters to come out, and we can get people who's more independent to actually get in the proper votes that they need. Because
Right.
if it's only structured for people who has
Right.
the money, right, or
who has the support of the party establishment,
rather than who has the best ideas,
right?
Then how do we change that? And what do we
All
do to actually get people to be aware of this system and how to change it?
So that's why I say open primary. I'll give you an example.
Mhm.
Civil court judge. There was a civil court judge race in the Bronx, right?
Okay.
So there was a young man, Francisco Tapia,
It's
right?
tabulate, right?
yeah, who was running. He said, "Well, Golf, I can't run. I'm not a registered Democrat. So I got the petitions. I know the rule. It was open primary. I ran him as somebody who was registered as independent, right? Running the Democratic primary because that's the only contest in New York State that has an open primary process. Guess what happened?
What?
He won the election. We had him beat the Democratic primary candidate, and he became the judge as an independent.
Get out of here. Very
Right.
good.
So that's where the process can work.
Very
You know what I'm saying?
So how is that? Repeat that again. How does that process work?
It's open primary.
No,
So
I
that
get-
means that the party, so anybody can run in a Democratic primary. Anybody can run in a Democratic primary, right? You don't have to be a member of the party. Right now, the requirement, if you're gonna, you can't run from another party. You have to get what they call a Wilson Pocula, which means you have to get the approval of 3 county leaders from the city, from the 5 boroughs, 5 counties, to approve of you to say you can run in our primary. And that will never happen, basically. Never happen. So that's why
But it's possible.
It is possible.
It's possible.
It's possible because that's what happened with Mayor Bloomberg. He was a Democrat, and he had more than 3 of the Republican county leaders in New York to give him a Wilson Pocula. So he ran as a Republican, although he wasn't a Republican.
How did he do that? What's the process? And how do people make that happen?
Well, you have to reach out to the county leaders of the 5 boroughs and get 3 of them,
County leaders.
and get 3 of them to vote for you to get what they call it's called a Wilson Pocula.
Wilson Pocula.
Yes, Wilson Pocula is the name, and it's named after one. Wilson was an assemblyman and Pocula was a senator, or vice versa.
I'm about to say it sounds like a name, like somebody's last name.
No, they were the 2 sponsors of the bill.
So they put the names together.
They put a name. They named the bills after the people who sponsor it. You see,
Wilson Pocula.
right? Because just like
Look into that.
just like the Mitchell-Lama developments in New York City. Why is it Mitchell-Lama? Because an assemblyman named Mitchell and a senator named Lamba sponsored the bill, and it passed, so it became after their name, Mitchell-Lama after their name. So if you was in the legislature and you sponsored the bill, your name would be on the bill.
Nice.
Right.
Okay.
So that's that. So it's Wilson Pocula. So therefore, you would have to get the approval of the 3 chairmen of New York City's 5 counties.
5 counties, right?
Right. And once that's done, that is what Mayor Bloomberg did, because Mayor Bloomberg was a registered Democrat. He wasn't a Republican.
Really?
But he knew he could not win the Democratic
So he
primary.
switched it up.
So no, he didn't switch parties. He actually went and got the Wilson Pocula from the Republican and said, "I will win the election as your Republican candidate." So Mayor Bloomberg got all the 5 county leaders in the Republican Party to say, "You could be our candidate." So he ran as a Republican and he won the election.
Wow, interesting.
That's why we need to have choice.
That's good news.
Yes.
That's what choice does, though.
Yes.
So that's my point. It goes back to my point. how do we make things, more accessible, different options, of course. And that's one of the things, having different options.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we did ranked choice voting, right? And there are certain, we modeled it. I helped fashion the ranked choice voting in a campaign that we did to get it changed. Ranked choice voting was successful in the city of Seattle, Washington, where more people got involved because of ranked choice voting. And so that worked out perfectly.
Let me ask you a question. So when it comes down to voting, do you think that is rigged, or like secret parties behind the scene has more of a say on how it's done, or what vote?
No. The only way you talk about the rigging part is when it comes time for people to run for election and they got to do petitions, and the Democratic Party or the Republican Party have their lawyers and they challenge you. Even if you have enough signatures, they keep you in court. Who control the judges in each borough? The county, like in Bronx County, the Democratic Party, Queens County, the Democratic Party. So those parties, in all the 5 counties, except Staten Island, Richmond County. So the Democratic Party has to say, and they are the ones who elect those judges and select those judges, and you got to go before them. Now, what luck you think you're going to have to be on the ballot? So you spend a lot of time, even if you get to be on the ballot, you spend so much money trying to defend your petitions, right, that you don't have enough money to run your election. And that's where the rigging comes in, I say, because then it's already a done deal, because the choice of the party becomes the elected officials. That's why hardly any incumbents ever lose the election. That's why we need to have an open process.
Very interesting.
Yes. Okay. We need to have an open process.
Very interesting. I never knew that. I never knew that it was that type of process when it came down to
right. And you see, the very few people, the turnouts before we did this ranked choice voting, the turnout in Democratic primaries or even in the election is less than 10%. 90% of the people in New York City don't even vote.
That is interesting. That is very interesting. So that goes towards saying, so a lot of the people who win is their personal people who comes out and actually vote, rather than the actual people. Right. It's like people that they know. So would you say that a lot of the times these elections are rigged by fraternities behind the scene, or people that they're mostly associated with, whether it's secret societies or fraternities or any?
Well, there's no rigging it, because I work at the Board of Elections and do elections, and there's no way you can rig that election, right? So there's no rigging of the election.
Not so much rigging, all right. So let's not use that terminology. So, but controlled or say, let's say like, you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. All right. Like, so in a low turnout process, right? The Democratic Party, for example, in New York City, have their leadership positions, district leaders, right? State committee people. They got a process of their party structure, right? And they also have people who works the election for them, right? Mm-hmm. So Democratic inspectors, stuff like that, Republican inspectors. Right. So if you want a job at the Board of Elections, right? And you're getting what, $250 a day? So you work 9 days, you get over $2,000 something. Mm-hmm. Look, you gotta vote for who I tell you to vote for, or you're not gonna get that job. That's how it usually works.
Right.
Right. So they have
You think that's fair? Is that a fair?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's fair in the sense that, I mean, come on, if I'm giving you something, you gotta do something for me. You know what I mean? I'm not going to
be a form of like blackmail.
No, I don't think it's a form of blackmail.
Or like a form of some type of control, making it a conflict of interest.
Because of the way the system is set up, right? It's set up that way that you have a party structure, the state law, right? And you got leaders, and you got state committee, and you got county committee people. So in every assembly district, you got a whole bunch of county committee people. You got about 80 county committee people and 100 county committee people. So how you think those county committee people are going to vote? They're going to vote for the part because they're part of the party structure, right? So those people get the vote out for the party.
But that's because it's in that interest. It's in the interest of that organization and that party,
right?
Rather than what their real or personal opinion may be, and that's what it should be more of. Correct?
Right. But again, I'm not going to
conflict of interest rather than fair voting or
No, because again, I'm not gonna attack the process of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party have the same structure too, right? So
So would you say that the entire system needs to be changed, or something needs to be
right? That's why I'm trying to say, going back to what we're going to discuss, is the open primary process, because if a million people in New York City can't vote in this primary, 1 million people cannot vote in this primary. What is that saying to the elected officials? I don't have to do nothing for you because you couldn't even vote for me, 1 million people. So we have to change the rules. We have to change the law.
We have to change the rules and the laws. Absolutely.
Yes.
So given the chance to put something into legislation, a bill, what would you make that bill? How would you word that?
Right. So now the Charter Review Commission is looking at it to put it on the ballot in November. It's going to be on the ballot in November. We're going to make sure it gets on the ballot in November. Right. So what we're going to request to be on the ballot, and I hope people will support it, is to have an open primary, so that those million people can have a vote in the primary, and that I don't have to be a Democrat, Republican, independent, whatever. I can run in the open primary.
How do you feel about candidates or state officials who's tightly knitted with gangs, with organized organizations, whether it's fraternities or secret societies? How do you feel about people who's tightly knitted with these type of organizations or gangs being in places or position of power over the people?
Well, I don't know about the gangs, but because
gangs is the same thing. So
I mean,
if it's an organized organization,
right,
it has a motive. Whether it's
right. If you want to say that's a gang, but when we say gang, we're talking about the bad guys.
No, you're not talking about a bad guy. You say
okay.
Gang. NYPD is a gang.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If you want to,
the Masons take it that way. A gang.
Right. So
every fraternity is a gang.
Right.
It's a mob of people join together to do organized work.
So
whether it's something negative.
Yeah.
Negative is a perception.
Yeah.
So we can't say, okay, well, when we say gang, we're talking about the bad guys.
Yeah. Right. So
it's the same thing.
So most elected officials, they got a cause to be either belong to a fraternity or a sorority, and they're members of that. And so those fraternities and sororities would always back that elected official. Nothing wrong with that. That's good, because at least they have some accountability to those organized organizations.
They have accountability to that organization, but that organization may have an agenda that may not be for the entire people, for the other million people who just not voting. And this is where another conflict comes in as well. So how do we say that, okay, well, we want to put this person in position because they're down with this organization, but then they don't suit the people?
But
because of their agenda.
In most instances, those sororities, fraternities, or whatever you want to call them, the Masons, whatever, you name it.
Or gangs, any gang. I'm not just thinking about one fraternity.
They have an agenda that fits into the category, which a lot of it is not bad. So even if you're talking about the police department.
Bad according to who? This is another perception. This is what I'm saying. So either way, it's not something that I think personally is fair, or it should be just. It shouldn't. I mean, I think personally we should stop people from being in power who's in fraternities, gangs, or known or affiliated with these type of organizations, because it comes with an agenda. This is why a lot of things are happening now. Like, for instance, look at what's going on with Puff Daddy.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? The way he's controlling, or what they're saying, supposedly, the way the control that he has over the community is because of his association with certain fraternities
Yeah.
and certain organizations.
Mhm.
So it's the same thing. So we put certain people in power who's down with these same organizations or fraternities, these same, these groups. Then who's to say that they don't have the same agenda, or they won't manipulate the people to believe that everything is good? How you saying, some things are good, and then but they're doing certain things that the entire people would not agree to.
Right.
So how do we stop these type of people from getting in office?
But I don't think technically you can do that. You know what I mean? Because
that's very
constitutionally they have the right to organize, just like any organization. That means you would also want to say that the NAACP can't put an agenda together.
They say they can't put an agenda.
Yeah, but they what you're talking about almost like a fraternity or sorority.
That's not true. See, so you're talking about a government organization rather than a secret society,
right?
Or something that's put together outside of the government. It's a difference. You understand what I'm saying? So
yeah,
that's my point. And if you can differentiate the two, then I think that we should be able to, differentiate the two completely.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? This cannot be this and that cannot be that. That's my opinion. Otherwise, we'll always have a society that's ran by another society, and then nobody ever wins. It's no progress, because now, we want change. We're fighting for change, but we beating on it. We kicking on a door that's been sealed and locked.
Right, but if you don't
to the regular people, because they not a part of a certain gang or fraternity.
But if you don't have that,
or whatever they want doesn't fit the agenda,
right,
of what that organization or fraternity or whatever case is.
But look what's happening now.
Exactly.
If you know what I'm saying, the point I'm going to show you.
What's happening
I'm going to show you.
That's my point.
I'm going to show you. The people with the money, the millionaires and billionaires, are the ones that determine legislation that could go there, and the people, average person, don't have that say in the legislature because they don't have the resources. So some of these sororities and fraternities counter these big shots who are trying to control the government.
I think it's all
they nullify the government.
Now you got to look at, okay, so all right, so you have a billionaire independent. He's not part of a fraternity. Most likely he is, though.
No,
trust me.
No.
Anyway, say he's not, but he has an agenda, and his agenda is to push certain things, certain narratives, whatever the case may be. Then you have an organization. It's the same thing, right? How do you push all of that aside and put in somebody who's pure? Because this is what we need nowadays. We need somebody who's pure, who does not have any attachments, any affiliations, or contact with any one of these type of people with agendas.
Yes.
Because that's why we're in the situations that we're in now. When you talk look about what's happening today, the billionaires like Diddy or whoever is behind these groups, organizations, or state officials, or whatever the case may be, right? They have agendas that doesn't fit or suit everybody who's not attached to or willing to join or even capable of, because you got to think about these organizations, fraternities or whatever, they have qualifications, they have requirements in order for you to join them. So, and a lot of people, they can't, because they either have records, criminal records, or they have mental disabilities. Doesn't make them crazy. Look at my man Eric Adams. He's the whole mayor. He honestly, if you look at his track record, he was the greatest mayor ever. The greatest. You understand what I'm saying? But nobody's not looking at the fact that things that he actually done. They trying to bring him down because he's talking about he had a mental disability back in the days, and that's what they trying to feed off of.
It wasn't really a mental disability.
Well, he was in special ed.
Dyslexia, which a lot of people do have.
My point is, these are the type of things that stigmatize, who should be who, what should be what, and it kind of stops. Stops people with great hearts and great minds and ideas from being in certain positions. Right. And that's the problem. That's why you don't got the million people that you talking about. You want them to come out. They see behind, certain things, and they see further than, and this is why we don't get them, because it's not really a fair game. You understand what I'm saying? So my point is, how do we change that? How do we start saying, you know what? Let's start, depicting who we put in office and why we put them in office, and the things that they can do and they can't do.
But that's because that's why I'm saying changing the system so that the people will have more of a say, right? Because I'm telling you, I used to run the student organization for City University, and we went to Albany. We did, and City Hall. We did a lot of lobbying for legislation and for changes, right? So when you go to a legislative member, they say, look, did you vote? No, because they pull up your voting record. They see that you don't vote. So, you know, if you're not voting, why? And I'm an elected official. Why should I do something for you when you can't even challenge me? You can't vote me out of office. You talking all the talk and you don't participate.
That's another thing.
That's
another thing. So now you're saying state officials, they don't respect the people who didn't vote.
Why would you? If they can't say nothing to you or can't, you know what I mean? Because you can't vote me out of office.
It's what their job is. What their job is, though. Because because a person decided not to put their name on a ballot and vote, for a person, do they deserve to be treated any different?
Not treated any different, but the point of the matter.
That's what you're saying. You're basically saying a state official won't respect the person if they haven't voted.
Right.
Does that mean that they should not serve them equally?
No, they will serve them. However, you're not a threat. If I'm an elected official and I know you ain't gonna vote, you're not a threat to me. So I don't have to specifically do specific things for you because I know I'm going to be elected anyway without your input.
So, I see what you're saying. So basically, the point here is getting the people to vote, getting people to actually have the knowledge of the power that they have when they vote.
Yes.
That's understandable. So the question here would be, how do we get people who don't have this same knowledge, who has these same point of views as both of us, to actually get out there and vote and get out there and make a difference?
This is why I'm going back to the city charter is going to put on the ballot this November open primaries. That makes a difference because the politicians are going to you're a blank voter, you're not a registered. You can vote against me. But right now, they can't vote until November. November election is basically a done deal in most instances.
So most of the people in power, politicians, are hypocrites, basically.
No, I wouldn't say they're hypocrites.
I would say that because if you only going off of morally and ethically, if you only going off of, okay, well, this person hasn't voted, so they can't really, change anything or they can't hurt me, then I'm gonna do what I want until I feel like this person has the power to change my position.
Yeah.
Well, so that goes against moral and ethical codes.
Well, I'll give you
that's a hypocrite.
No, I'll give you a baseball analogy, right? We our team, we're hitting home runs and we get a nice pitcher come up there and we take the lead, but we bring somebody in there who's gonna give up all the runs and make us lose the game. That's what I'm referring to. You know what I mean? In the sense that if people can't, one of our hosts, Andy King, love to say, people pay attention to people
that participate.
But they participate.
Right.
So if I'm not participating in my community,
shout out to Andy King too.
If I'm not participating in my community, why, as elected officials, should I care if you're not participating? If I can't get you to come to a meeting, right? Like there's a lot of meetings in our community that affects us. The community board.
So
how many people go to the community board?
See, I understand exactly what you're saying, but it doesn't make it right. But that's a conversation for another time. So the real conversation is, how do we get these people to come out and actually vote?
By changing the charter to have an open primary process where the people who are disillusioned, they're disillusioned.
Honestly, let me say something. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called Easy Living Shelter. We're a nonprofit. We give out to the community. We give out all day. We do food distributions. We give out all type of resources, whether it's brand new clothes, brand new coats, jackets, laptops, furniture. We even give out brand new furniture. And I've noticed that the best way to get people to participate is giving out incentives. And it may be a conflict of interest for them, but I think that the only way to actually getting people to pay attention is to doing more community events, doing things in the community, even if it's not full voting or whatever the case may be, more things to give out more resources for free. They got the money, and even if they're not doing it directly, hire a nonprofit, hire a different organization, and really get it done. A lot of times, right? Like the Bronx just passed for a couple of $1 billion, right? Now, what these state officials do is they give out this money to bigger organizations who's been known to be out and doing things for many, many years, rather than grassroots organizations. This is organizations I call boot on the ground, boots, boot organizations. Right, you understand what I'm saying? Right. These are organizations who really in the gutter, in the projects, in these what you call slum neighborhoods, actually getting in tune with the people. Right. Now, the state officials tend to look over these type of people and go to the to the major organizations thinking that that's going to work when they're so lax because they're so used to getting this funding. And they're not really they're doing a bare minimum, right? And they're still getting funding. Yes. So I mean, my opinion is if we can get more participation from the state officials to help out these grassroots organizations, right? Then maybe we can get people to pay attention. We can get people to say, you know what, these people are really doing something in our community. Yeah. Why not? Why would we not want to keep this going? Yeah. Why would we not want to support this? Either organization or this state official, right? So this way we can keep this stuff going, and this is why a lot of people are not voting because we don't see any real change. We don't see any real, effects from these people being in office.
I wouldn't put that label on all elected officials.
Not all elected officials.
I know some of the elected officials that will help. Like for example, Senator Leroy Carpenter from Queens. Anybody call his office. I know ask him for help.
Natalia Fernandez.
Yes. Right. So what I'm saying, I don't want to put that label on everybody. Alicia Hammond is a woman in Queens. You know what I mean? Clive Vanell in Queens. All those people, reach out and help people and develop a network of bringing people together. You know what I mean? And some of the borough president, Donovan Richards in Queens, have community meetings and community input, you know what I mean? And there's a large turnout when you have those meetings.
Like I said, I'm the executive director of a nonprofit, so I can't really spit all of the state officials because it may seem like as if I'm promoting them. So that's a conflict of interest. Yeah. But I know a lot of state officials who's actually, indulged and got involved in, supporting a lot of different events that either I've thrown myself or I attended to. So, I do see it, but it's not as common and it's not like major events for smaller organizations. And I think that's key, starting to get these smaller organizations bigger money so this way they could do better. Yeah. But
and I also want to dig up Senator James Saunders from the South Jamaica area, Rockaway, who does a lot to help people.
Okay, Rabbi.
I have to give credit. I gotta give credit to where credit is due. Very good. Because sometimes the elected officials don't get the due that they get. That's right. You know what I mean?
The recognition that they deserve.
The deserve. And like, as a rabbi, I call, for example, Senator Comey's office all the time. I mean, he helps so many people. People losing their homes, he helped them keep their homes.
Very good.
So elected officials do a lot of good work.
They do a lot of good work. Not as much as they should. Yes. For grassroots. All right.
Yes.
Because I think that's key.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna take a break now for the last segment, and then we'll be right back.
Peace. Easy.
Hello, viewers in America and around the world. This is Gath Marchent for Millennium TV 24. I am the host for News and Views with the Rabbi. This platform is for all religions and much more. Please watch Millennium News 24 every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We are streaming on live TV and podcast, iOS, and Android services, and all smart TV, Fire TV, Roku TV, and Apple TV. Globally, we are on Horizon Satellite. Our website is MillenniumTV24.com, MillenniumNews24.com, all social media, Millennium News 24.
Souls to the polls.
We are back. Yeah, we are back, and we're gonna try to wrap up to really try to get the maximum amount of votes out for this primary. So we were talking in the break about soul to the polls.
Souls to the polls. That's right. So this Saturday, guys, this Saturday is your opportunity to actually make a difference, make a change. You know, a lot of the times we pass it because either we're so busy in our everyday lives, or we just forget, you know. But try to really get out there, guys. You know, vote. It's this Saturday. Go find out, if you don't know, find out what office you got to go to, what polls. You know, they are looking for people to help work. I think they pay what, $200 a day. $250. It went up $250 for you to go out and actually help, you know, people vote. And get out there, get it done, because without your vote, and I urge this, and back, you know, maybe a couple years ago, not even that long ago, I wasn't that heavy on voting myself. Mm-hmm. You know, I was like, I'm not voting, I'm not, you know, putting my name on these ballots and all of that, but it was ignorant. What's the difference? You still got to do, what is it called, when they go to the house to count the people, the census. Yeah. So they know that you're there. We know, I mean, the people know that you're there, you know, so it's not like you're going to put your name on something that's going to put you down to go do something, or send you to the military or something like that. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So what's the point of not going to vote? Make a difference in your community. You know what I'm saying? You might see somebody at the polls that you may know, like, oh, this person is running. Yes. I never knew this such and such from the hood, or this such and such from my neighbor. I know this guy. Right. You know, and that's another thing too, guys. You know, we need more of us actually in these elections. Yes. You know, more of our people. So, you know, it's something to look into. You know, if you haven't, you know, indulged in, you know, politics or who you want to vote for, or the people that's running, you know, just look in it. You know what I'm saying? Start indulging. Start, you know, getting in tune to what's going on around you. All right. Make a change in your community. A lot of times, or we come from places where we probably, you know, we afraid because people like, oh, what? You doing this? You cool, you whack. Or they start trying to make fun of you or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But you got to be different. You got to be different. Start making a change in your community. That's what it's all about. Yes. Unity in the community. Souls to the polls. Well,
souls to the polls is a situation that was basically in the South. That's what elected Senator Warner, a black man from Georgia, within the Senator, Souls to the polls. So what's Souls to the polls? We got all these churches in our community. So this Sunday, after service, you need to march your constituents to the polls to vote. That's right. After service. That's one good thing. That's what we call souls to the polls. Some of your churches got vans and everything like that. Drive them to the find out the early voting site and take them to the early voting site to vote. If not, then you can get them on election day to take them to the polls also. Use your resources to help get the vote out, because that's important. We can make a difference. Souls to the polls. Souls to the polls. Because I'm telling you, you know, as a rabbi Jewish, in the Jewish community, when the rabbis talk to our constituents, we get them out to the polls. You're gonna see a large Jewish vote come out because we as the rabbis let our constituents know they got come out to vote.
How does the people know where to meet you guys and actually get that ride? Because I'm pretty sure, you know, a lot of people may not know.
Well, they gotta reach out. They, you know, what I mean, like I said, the church. You got some people got church vans. You can drive them to the polls, right? You say, meet me at the church after service. We can.
So
do
now
that.
we're talking to the pastors,
Yes,
and the deacons.
Yes,
It's time to knock on doors. You got to put that footwork in. And we ain't saying, tell people to vote for anybody.
Yes.
Just let people know it's time to vote.
Right, and they have a choice. Let them decide. Let the people decide.
Let the people decide. That's right.
Right. You know what I mean? So we have to say, everybody here that are watching can go and Google New York City Board of Elections, polling site. You click on there. You will see your early voting polling site and your election day polling site is all there with a map and directions on there. So you could go there and you'll find that out. And not only that, you can get a copy of the ballot, a sample ballot, so you know in advance who you'll vote for.
Who you're voting for, that's right.
Because all you gotta do when you put in there, you put your address, your street number, and your street, right? And your zip code, and everything will come up on where you're gonna vote. So you will have an idea. You don't have to guess where you're gonna vote. Because I'm explaining the early voting site is not the same as your regular voting site. So when you go to the Board of Elections website, it will explain that to you, where your early voting site is based on the address that you live in, that you're registered from, and it will tell you this is where you're going to vote, right? So that's important for you to do. Plus also for you to get a sample ballot of who is on the ballot.
That's true.
So you can
a lot of times people go, new voters, and they don't know who they voting for.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So definitely do your research.
Right.
Go get that sample ballot, check out the candidates, check out what they stand for, who you may be more in touch with. And I urge you, sometimes it's just like that, who you may be in more touch with. Like certain state officials, they may have certain campaigns that's beneficial to a certain culture. Or just a certain type of people, So you got to look at that too. Try to stay in touch. It's very important, very very important for sure.
So we have to be involved, and we have to make sure we come out to vote, because one of the things that if somebody get elected mayor and you're not involved or you don't participate, then we're not going to get the response when we need services in our community.
Yep,
they're going to look at a specific community. They're going to say, Soundview didn't come out to vote, so why should I give services to Soundview? That's politics. That's how it works.
But it's something we're going to look into, because we're going to change that. We don't want them in office. We don't want those type of people in office. So we're going to make some changes.
That's why we got to, again, people listen to people who participate. If you don't participate, they ain't going. Come on, they don't have to listen to you. So that's why I'm urging a massive turnout here. You know what I mean? To the point, even if we have a massive turnout, we don't even have to go to all those ballots to find a winner, right?
That's true.
Because the person can win. Yeah. A person can win on the first ballot, or the second ballot, if enough people turn out to vote, and determine the winner. So let's please come out to vote. Make sure it is. Early voting starts on Saturday, the 14th.
This Saturday.
Going to the 22nd.
That's right.
All those 9 days. So you got a choice when you come home from work. Don't wait.
If you can, get out there this Saturday.
Yeah.
Saturday. The sooner the better. So this way you get it out the way. You don't forget. Or, you might forget you got prior engagements and then you don't go because you got other things to do. Try to get there this Saturday, or this Sunday at least.
Yes.
And
Sunday is sold to the polls. Right. Sold to the polls.
Souls to the polls. That's right.
Yes.
Make your voice count in your community. All right.
Right.
That's right. Otherwise, we just lost souls.
Yes.
That's right.
Because again, I go back. The bottom line is that when people look at the results of the election, right? Mm-hmm. So using this community, Soundview as an example, if they see that the turnout in Soundview is big, guess what's going to happen? When it comes time for them to be in office, they're going to respond to the community and give it services. Mm. But if the turnout is low here, why should I give services?
That's right.
That's how the system works. It might be bad, but that's how it works.
You know what killed me too, Rabbi? is the fact that a lot of people complain about certain things in the community.
Yes.
Whether it's the quality of food, like in certain supermarkets, whether it's not enough police presence, or the killing and the shooting in the community because of the lack of police presence.
Yes.
But what they don't realize is that your vote helps change that.
Yes.
Because the more people who vote, right, like Rabaai was saying, then the more they pay attention to that community.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? So if you got a community where it's a lot of gun violence, it's a lot of drug activity, and you want to really change that, you don't even have to be a nonprofit, out there, boots on the ground. You don't have to be. You don't even got to be a cop caller, somebody snitching and calling. You could be somebody who actually changed the entire community for the future.
Yes.
Not for the moment.
Yeah.
For the entire future. Get out there and vote.
Right. This is one thing I can say about Mayor Adams, right? Involving the community with the police, right? Now, I'm one of the clergy liaison with the NYPD.
Oh,
right.
I didn't know that.
And we do have involvement. This is unusual. Let me tell you. We had a commander for South Queens Command, Commander Kevin Williams, right? And all of the precincts, he got like about 7 or 8 precincts in his command. Every one of them, when we had a new commander, he get the community to vote on who the commander is going to be. Right? So we were for all those precincts. And when we vote for who the commander is going to be, and the results that came out on our vote, that's who we choose as the commander. So then we had input. That never happened before. And this happened on the Mayor Adams, right? So we were able to get things done. When we didn't have to call 911 when we had a problem.
Call Mayor Eric Adams.
No, we call the commander. We call the commander precinct.
Right, because they had a personal connection.
Right.
Because they helped get him in office.
Right.
Or in that position.
So with that, we have to close. Right. Vote. It's important. Thank you, and God bless.
Blessings.
Shalom. Yes, sir. Shalom.
Peace.
I heard him knock, so.
Easy.
Yes.